Okay, we're holding here still in the first of the 13 principles of faith of the Rambam. And I want to just recap one of the things that we said last week. First of all, let's just read the words one more time. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shalema. I believe with emunah shalema, with complete faith. Sha'habari yizbarach shemayhu bari umanig l'chol abruim. That the Creator, the Holy One, blessed be He, who bairei umanig l'chol abruim, He creates umanig and He guides all of the creations. V'hu levadai asa, He alone, nobody else, He doesn't need any help. Asa, He made, v'oisa, He makes, v'ya'aseh, and He will make, l'chol ha'ma'asim, to all of His created things that He has in this world. We pointed out last week the following seeming contradiction in the way that the Rambam himself, in two different places, presents our obligation of Emunah. In one place, the Rambam says that the obligation that we have of believing in Hashem is ledas es Hashem, or leida is to know Hashem. That a person has to create for themselves a yediyah, which is where they are accumulating all of the facts and the knowledge and the understanding that they possibly can have of Hashem and how He runs this world. The other way that the Rambam introduces this mitzvah, of course, is mitzvah laha'amin, to believe in Hashem. And a person is obligated to work on what we call in English belief, but of course we're going to be describing throughout what emunah, what faith and belief really is. So what does the Rambam hold? Does the Rambam hold that you have to know Hashem? Or does the Rambam hold that you have to believe in Hashem? So there's two things that we said last week, and I just want to restate them so it'll carry us into today's lesson as well. Number one, that every mind, every intellectual mind, every human being is able to gain for themselves a yediyah, a knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is, as we're going to see from the world, from our learning, from our experiences in life, all of those things, they will give us yediyah, they will give us a knowledge and an awareness that there is Hashem. But that itself is not real emunah. That's not what our faith is all about. And as he brings in the Brisker Rav, that our emunah is when we get to the place in our yediyah, in our knowledge and our understanding of Hashem, when we hit our limits of that, so then there's always a realm and a world that's beyond that, of what it's going to take to have a deeper faith and a deeper understanding of Hashem and how He runs the world. That is going to be called our emunah, our faith. Which means that as you're growing in the ladders over here of emunah, you're starting with yediyah, knowledge. I get to a certain point, and I know Hashem the best that I possibly can, but then something happens in my life, let's say for example, that's not within my realm of yediyah, within the realm of my knowledge. I understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu rewards and He punishes. I understand that. But whatever is going on in my life right now, so that's not within my knowledge of the realm of reward and punishment. Says the Brisker Rav, at that moment, you leave the world of your knowledge, and now you enter into the world of emunah, where you are believing based upon the foundations of knowledge that you have. You're believing in a higher level of where you're really holding in your knowledge. So I'm going beyond my level. That's the first way that he describes what emunah is. Yediyah brings me to the awareness, to the understanding, to the knowledge of Hashem, and certainly all along the way I'm believing in Hashem as a result of that. But then I'm going to get to a certain point where my yediyah stops, my knowledge stops. I don't know that much about Hashem. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, well, now you have to really enter into the world of emunah, of true faith in Hashem, not chas v'shalom, not blind faith. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want the Jewish people to be walking around with blind faith. Blind faith would be, I did nothing at all in my life to try to figure out who Hashem is, and I believe. That's not what God is asking for. Hashem is asking us, work and work and work. Gather all the information that you possibly can. Bring yourself to an intellectual and emotional awareness of who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, spiritual awareness even, but you get to a certain point where you say, you know what, I don't know anymore. If you don't anymore, now you go into the world of Emunah. Not blindly. You know enough already about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His existence to take you to a higher level. That's one way that he describes Emunah. The other way that we described Emunah last week is that Yediyah, knowledge, is very cerebral. It's a very intellectual exercise that a person will go through trying to bring themselves into the world of understanding Hashem. But that's not where it ends. That's not where our service of Emunah ends. Really, as he says, you have to bring these ideas and these thoughts and this information, you have to bring it down into your heart. So that not only do you know what it means to believe in Hashem, but when it's in the lave, when it's in the heart, then you can live with that emunah, you can live with that faith. If it gets locked up here in our brain, and it never travels down to our heart, so then it's not certain, or there's no guarantee, that when a person will find themselves in a situation that requires tremendous well springs of emunah, of faith, to be able to overcome it, it's no guarantee that your intellect alone is going to carry you through that situation. But when you are a person who walks around with the feelings and the understanding and the deep emotion of emunah inside of you, then even if you're not on that level, but you are a Maimon, you are someone who believes, therefore you can go through the challenges, the difficulties, the hardships, the blessings, the good things, all the different things, you go through it with the very vestige of Emunah. There's a beautiful story with the Klausenberger Rebbe that, for those of you who do know or do not know of his life, he was a Hasidic Rebbe before the war broke out in Europe, for World War II, the Holocaust. He had 12 children going into the concentration camps. He lost his wife and his 11 children in the camps. His one son survived the war, only to die after the war was over in the DP camps itself. So here was a man who went through the war. He lost his entire family, his wife and 12 children. He managed to go through everything without ever eating 1 ounce of tray food for the 3 or 4 years that he was in Auschwitz. He never had to work the way that they tell over the stories are. He never had to work on Shabbos. He never worked on Yom Tov. The other Hasidim, the other people that were there, they protected him in every single way that they possibly could. He went through the war with tremendous emunah. He didn't complain about anything that happened to him. He went through. When the war was over, he ended up surviving, Baruch Hashem, and he first came to America. And he rebuilt the Hasidus, he rebuilt his dynasty of the Klausenberger Hasidus in America. That's where it started. And he got remarried, and he started having children. And when he was making the chasana, the wedding of his first child, that came after the war, after he'd lost his entire family to begin with, and this was his new family, new life. So you could only imagine the sheer joy that he had, that he survived and he rebuilt, and he was surrounded by all of his Hasidim, and he was walking his son down to the chuppah. So the story is that he was standing there by the chasana, and he began speaking very emotionally about everything that he had gone through and how he was holding by this moment today. And he said that on the scale of simcha, on the scale of joy, he said that he's like holding over here. If you would make a line on the wall, he's like over here. And he said, I just ask and I pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that may I continue to be a person that is always going in this direction over here. I don't remember the exact words, but something of that nature. Which meant that in the hardest of times, he was a person who lived with emunah. But in the happiest of times as well, he was a man that was able to put everything in perspective, and he was able to see his emunah with faith and trust in Hashem in that respect also. So says this, Rav Epstein writes over here, the second way that we understand the correlation of yediyah, of knowledge, and emunah in our faith is that knowledge up here is not enough. It's got to be down in our heart. It has to become a real experience that we have of emunah, which we're going to speak about more today. So he writes the following. He says, how are you going to know Hashem? Where Hashem doesn't talk to you, there's Hashem doesn't have a podcast where he's blasting out all day long, telling you about his who he is and what he's all about. So how are we going to what are we going to use in this world to get to know Hashem? And he writes, the human mind and our brain does not have the ability to fully grasp, of course, who Hashem is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is before the world, He's in the world, He's created the world, He's everything, He's gigantic. How can a limited mind be able to understand these things? So the Rambam, when he describes Hashem, he calls him a nimtza. He calls him an existent thing. He calls it something that is there. The Ribono Shel Olam is nimtza, he is found. He exists. Says the Rambam, if you want to know how to define Hashem, you should know Hashem exists. And as we're going to see, his existence doesn't depend upon anything else. Before him, after him, in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's existence is 1,000% dependent only on him. Hashem, he is a nimtza, he exists. The fact that he exists, it shows us that he does not exist. That he is not ne'edar. How would you say, Mrs. May, in English? Absent. The fact that Hashem exists is a proof that he's not absent. Now, okay, that's semantics. That's English. What does that mean? That means the Rambam is saying the fact that we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists, he is the ultimate being of this world, that means that you have no right to say that Hashem is absent from this world. A person in their, again, a thinking, logical individual will not be able to say that Hashem doesn't exist in this world. He is absent. He's not here. Why? Because we find in the Chovos HaLevavos, which is one of the great Mussar works that we have, he says the following idea. We must call HaKadosh Baruch Hu a nimtza, and that he exists. Because the proofs of this world testify to his existence. And he writes this very simple idea. If a person opens their eyes and they look at the world and they see what's going on around them, you look at your hand and you see how everything moves. You walk and you talk and you breathe and you hear and you see and you lay down and you get back up and you see the miracle of childbirth and you see the birds flying in the sky and you see fish that are swimming through the sea and you see all the different things, the blue skies, the sun setting. The scientists themselves have told us if the sun would be 1 centimeter closer to the earth, it would burn the earth up into smithereens. If the sun would be 1 centimeter farther away from where it is right now, the earth would freeze over. So look at the fact that the sun and the earth are exactly where they belong. And they have been in that place, exactly where they belong, since the beginning of time. That itself, says the Chovos HaLevavos, is itself one of the greatest rayas and proofs that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a nimtza, that he exists, and that he is not absent from this world. And that's what it says in the verse, Sa'u maroi meinechem, lift up your eyes above, v'ro'o mi bara ele, and see who created all of this. Just look, says the David HaMelech in Tehillim. I'm sorry, this is Yeshaya Navi. Just take a look at the world and it will be impossible for a person to denounce or to think to themselves that Hashem doesn't create this world. Says the Chovos HaLevavos, because something that is absent cannot do anything. Something that doesn't exist cannot create anything. The cave and she's baro ma'asav v'briyosov, and since you look clearly in the world and you see creations and you see actions and you see a world and you see nature and you see everything that is there, It becomes clear in our das, in our minds, that there is a mitzius, that there is a creator, that there is something that exists, and that existence is called HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Chovos Levavos that you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that there's a creator in this world. You don't have to be a genius to know that there is a nimtza, that there is the thing called Hashem that exists. When you look at the world and you see its perfection and you understand how everything just fits in, not coincidentally, but everything fits. Again, this is the world of atheism, is the biggest sham that has ever gone on since the beginning of time. Because no single person would ever believe that this building was built by itself. Nobody would ever believe that if they walked into a room and there was a 10,000 piece jigsaw puzzle on the floor, and every piece was in place exactly where it belonged, nobody in a bazillion years would ever believe that the puzzle just happened to fall into place. Nobody would ever believe that when you go to the dealership to get yourself a car, that car just happened to be iron and metal and rubber and tires and all plastic and all the different wood all just fell together and made this beautiful automobile. Nobody would believe that. So how could a person in their right mind ever actually believe that the world that we live in, which is so designed perfectly, just came into being by itself? How could a person say such a thing? Anybody that would say such a thing, says the Chovos Levavos, just doesn't see what's in front of his own nose. He doesn't see the world clearly. And therefore, that's why Yeshaya, the prophet, says, "Su'umarei meinechem," just lift your eyes up and look around you and see who created everything that is here. And when it becomes clear to you what you are seeing, a masterful creation, which is so complex, and there's so many intricacies, and there's so many things that have to work in the right way, then his essence, his reality, his existence becomes something that is very clear to each and every one of us. And that's what we're saying over here. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shleima shehu boirei umanhig. I believe in Hashem that He is the creator, umanhig, and He is the one that is guiding the world. V'asa v'oiser l'chol ha'ma'asim. He made, He makes, and He will make everything that is here in the world. Why? Ki al yidei puloisa ba'elamenu. Through the actions that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does in our world, noyde lanu, we know, shehu kel chai, that He is the living God, v'nimtza, and He exists, and He is around. That's basic Emunah. This is not, you don't have to go to a Emunah's class to understand this. Any scientist that will be honest with himself, instead of trying to deny the existence of Hashem, any scientist, biologist, geologist, anybody. I have a student who years ago, he went into the field of geology. And he told me, when you look at geology, it's fascinating. He said, it's so amazing and it's fascinating. You see how the world itself is created and everything like that. How could you not see Hashem? How could you not see the Rebbe? How could you not see the fingerprint of HaKadosh Baruch Hu everywhere? And therefore, he writes, part of our understanding in the existence, in the knowledge of Hashem is that we look at the world and we use our yediyah, our abilities to understand, and we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A Maisa, Rav Volbe Zatzal, who is the author of the Alei Shur, he has a student whose name is Rav Lichtenstein. And Rav Lichtenstein was one of his very close students. And he came to his Rebbe once and he said that he felt that he had to work on his Emunah. He had to work on his faith. So his Rebbe told him, do you look at science books? He says, no, not really. He told him a few names of science books that he should go and he should get and he should read through. And he said, this will strengthen your Emunah in Hashem being the creator of the world and running the world and how everything works in total symmetry and perfection. So he was a good student, and he went out and he bought these books, and he went through them, and in fact it was mechazik, it strengthened him in his understandings and his belief in Hashem. Years later, Rav Wolbe happened to come to his student's house, and he's walking to the house and he sees on the bookshelf, he sees these science books. So he says to his student, "Why do you have these books in your house?" He said, "Rebbe, you told me to get these books to strengthen myself in Emunah." So Rebbe said, "Yeah, that was many, many years ago. You don't need these books anymore." So he was saying you needed those in the beginning to develop your yediyah, your knowledge, your understanding, your awareness of who Hashem is. But now you're a person that's supposed to be living with the deep levels of Emunah inside of their heart. Says the Chovos Levavos that a person has to understand and know that the more you look at the world and the more you see this world, you think about all the intellect, the perfect, precise design of this world, it is impossible that you will not see a creator that is there. Now, he writes a fascinating idea over here, and I believe that this is something that we're going to have to work on throughout all of these Yud Gimel Ikrim, these 13 principles of faith. And he says, "V'tzarech lahargish sha'HaKadosh Baruch Hu nimtza." A person must learn how to feel that Hashem exists. Just like if there would be somebody in the other room, you know that they're there, you feel that they're there, even though that you cannot see them. It's like children. They always know that their parents are in the other room. And so they're on guard all the time. They don't see them. The door is closed. Well, who knows what they're doing over there behind closed doors? But they know, they're aware of the fact, they feel it, they sense it, that mommy or tati is in the other room over there, and therefore they do everything to make sure that they're not going to get caught or whatever it is that they're doing. We have to know that just like we're aware of if there's a person standing in the other room, whatever, we heard the door open up, we heard their footprints, we can feel it, we can sense it, we can hear them on their phone, but we cannot see them because you can't see through the window because there's no window over there. But you're margish, you feel, you know that they are there. That's the level that we have to reach in our Emunah, that even though that you can't see Hashem, because nobody can see Hashem, He doesn't have a body, He doesn't have limbs, He doesn't have a face, He doesn't have a nose, He doesn't have anything. You're never going to see Hashem, yet a person has to get to the level in their Emunah, in their faith, where they feel that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here, even though that I can't see Him. This is what's called Emunah Pshuta, simple faith, which our earlier and earliest of commentaries speak about when they discuss what Emunah, what faith really is. In the simplest of forms, a person should be living with a hargasha, with a feeling that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here. L'das b'yediyah pshuta sheish bar olam, to know in the simplest of ways that there is a creator of the world. V'habarihu mitzius kayemis, and He exists. Memashis k'mayko mitzius acheres hamukeres lana, just like you recognize there's a stender that is here, just like you recognize that there are chairs in this room, just like you can look around and you can see the walls and we can see each other, nobody would deny that anybody is here. So our level of the Emunah that we're going to have in HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to get to the place that we feel and we understand and we believe and we have an awareness that the Ribbono Shel Olam, the Master of the universe, is right here together with us. Now this is the lifetime of Avodah, the lifetime of work in the realm of Emunah that a person has to work on to develop, which is, I'm trying to make my Emunah, my belief in Hashem, something that is tangible. Because nobody wants to live with a God that is not tangible. Nobody wants to live with a God that is totally abstract. Nobody could believe in a Ribbono Shel Olam that they're totally unaware of. The only way that we're going to have true Emunah and true faith and live our lives accordingly is when we begin to have a such an awareness and a clarity of Hashem that He's right there. And this he writes, this beautiful mashal, this parable over here. Just like you feel that you are alive. You know that you're alive. You look at you know that you are alive. Says Rabbi Epstein, no matter what anybody tells you, no matter what shtusim v'havalim, some philosopher is going to come along, you're not really alive. Are you? When you lift your finger, is that really your finger? When you're looking in the mirror, are you really seeing yourself? No matter what ridiculous things people are going to comment and they're going to say, nobody will take away your belief that I am right here. I feel myself, I see myself, I know myself, I'm aware of my thoughts, I'm right here. You're telling me I'm not here? What are you talking about? I'm right here. Nobody can change my impression and my knowledge of myself. So too, we have to believe with simple faith that Hashem was, He is, and He always will be. Nimtza Kayim, He is the existing. He is a reality, He is here, and He will exist, and He will last forever. We're not on that level yet. We're only starting in the beginning of the Sefer, in the beginning of the 13 principles of faith. But that, in fact, is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to be someone that is so in touch and in tune with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nobody in the world will be ever able to tell you that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't exist. Nobody will come with all of their ridiculous claims of atheism and agnosticism and all the philosophies that nobody will ever come and tell you, well, how do you know? What do you mean, how do I know? Do I know that I'm alive? Yes. Do you know that you're alive? Yes. As I know that I am alive and nobody will tell me differently, I know that there is a Ribono Shel Olam and nobody will tell me, well, how do you know? Because I spent the last 5, 10 years, 20 years of my life working on it. You don't know Him because you're not working on it. You don't make any effort. You read all these different things and all these wild things that are about not believing in Hashem. So how are you supposed to believe in Hashem? Did you spend time, like we mentioned last week, Avraham Avinu spent 37 years of his life searching for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 37 years. Have you spent 37 minutes searching for Hashem? 37 days searching for Hashem? A year working on acquiring for yourself the idea, the knowledge, and then bring it into your heart? Have you worked on it for that long? A person that doesn't really work on it, they cannot expect to have ultimate belief in Hashem. But if a person does, then we get to this place. And this place is, I'm a person who walks around and I live with the hargasha, with the feeling, with the total awareness, with the understanding, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is right here. Where does it start? Look at the world. You'll see HaKadosh Baruch Hu's fingerprints everywhere. Now begin examining your life. Start looking at different things that have taken place in your life, and you'll see it is impossible that thing could have happened by chance. There's no way that all of the details that had to fall into place in order for this one thing to take place. Impossible, such a thing. There I begin to understand that's Hashem. That's Hashem's guiding. He's the manig, He's the one that is running and guiding this world. Now, Rav Weinberg Zatzal writes over here the following idea. And he says that the Rambam is coming to make the following point. And that is that the existence of Hashem is something that a person has to understand in absolute terms. This is not negotiable, which means that as the Rambam himself writes, and that is that Hashem's existence is perfect and it's absolute in all facets of existence. He is the cause of everything that exists. He sustains everything. And through Hashem, everything is maintained. And there's no possibility that He does not exist, because without Him, all existence would cease to be and nothing would remain. So Rav Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal uses these words of the Rambam to bring about the following point. That the only way that you're going to be able to claim to be a real Maimon, a true believer in Hashem, is when you believe that Hashem's existence is absolute. Absolute means that it is 100% a reality, and that it is not dependent upon anything else or anyone else. No one brought HaKadosh Baruch Hu into existence. No one is sustaining HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem's existence has no cause. There's nothing at all that is supporting him. And there's nothing that is maintaining him. And there's nothing which brought Hashem into being. Hashem is. It's an absolute existence. That's something, of course, that the human mind cannot fathom. And that's why Chazal teach us in the Gemara in Chagiga that don't even ask the question of what took place before there was Hashem in this world. Chas v'chalila. Because the human brain cannot understand such things. Rather understand there's God. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the source of all existence. And Hashem exists because He exists. Absolute, total existence is all Hashem. Now, he writes also that we have to understand, of course, nothing else exists in and of itself, and everything is dependent on Hashem, and only because, as we'll see, Hashem wills everything to be in existence. And He maintains everything as well. Now, Rav Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal asks the following questions. This is a very philosophical point that the Rambam is making in bringing us into the world of Emunah. It is a point that says, first of all, it's abstract because you can't see Hashem, you don't hear Hashem, He doesn't talk to you, all of these things. And yet the beginning of our Emunah is you must believe beyond the shadow of a doubt that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's existence is absolute and doesn't depend on anything else. On the other hand, we and all of the creation of the world are fully dependent on Hashem, who's maintaining us and giving us life all day long. So he asks, why is it that this belief in Hashem's absoluteness is the starting point for which will determine a person's ability to fulfill that which it says inside of the Torah? Meaning, the Rambam, remember we spoke about previously, the Rambam writes that if you don't believe in one of these things that it says in the 13 principles of faith, you will not have a claim to the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Moshe Rabbeinu brought over to us. And Rabbi Weinberg is asking, the first one is so abstract and so philosophically inclined. What would happen if a person didn't believe in this fully? Why would they not be able to have a complete connection with the Torah and fulfill the commandments that are there? So he goes on to explain that the reason that we must start with the truth, the reason that we must start with the fact that Hashem's existence is absolute, is because only when you believe that Hashem's existence is absolute, can you then believe that the Torah itself, which is given to us by Hashem, is what we call the absolute truth. It's the ultimate truth in the world. If Hashem is not absolute, and Hashem gave us the Torah, then the Torah also is something that is not absolute. And if the Torah is not absolute, then you can take it or you can leave it, you can do whatever you want with it. Just like there's a world of democracy, which, by the way, it's important to note, the Torah itself is not a democracy. The Torah and it's not a dictatorship either. The Torah is a book of obligations that come from the Ribono Shel Olam. Why did He obligate us in all of the mitzvahs? Because Hashem knows what is best for your neshama. He knows what is best for you. So He gave us 613 obligations that we are commanded to keep in order that we should be able to live our lives according to the Ratzon and the ultimate will of Hashem. But if Hashem is not absolute, if I can't believe in that, then that means whatever he has given us is also not absolute. Which means that the Torah then is up for debate. It's up for argument's sake. If there's something that I myself don't particularly agree with inside the Torah, if the sages have mentioned something that hard for me to understand, since I would hold that the Torah is not absolute, that means there's no single mitzvah that it must be, that's the way that it is. And when the sages explain things to me, it doesn't mean that's the way that it has to be. That's those old men with the white beards sitting in a room trying to come up with some ideas over here. So then, do whatever you want. Today you feel like Torah, tomorrow you don't feel like Torah, do whatever you want. It's not absolute. Today I'm in the mood to play football, tomorrow I'm not in the mood to play football. Today I'm hungry for milchiks, I'll eat milchiks. Tomorrow I want fleish, I'll have fleishiks. Today I'm grumpy, tomorrow I won't be grumpy because I slept enough and I ate enough. Today I'm a believer that Shabbos is a great thing. Next week I have something else I'd like to do on Shabbos, I'll do that instead. If Hashem's existence is not absolute, that means that the Torah itself is not absolute. If Hashem is absolute, which means He is existence, He is the reality. He doesn't depend upon anything else. He is His own omniscient, omnipotent being. So that means that whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to us then is also omniscient, is omnipotent, is absolute, complete, total truth, the way that Hashem is. A person who doesn't believe in this first part, says Rav Weinberg, he will have a very hard time engaging his life in a world of Torah and of mitzvahs because it will always be up for discussion's sake. And therefore he writes the following idea. He says, this is really why he says that every created being needs within inside of itself, has an urge, has a drive to belong to something that is bigger and vaster and greater than it is. Now that drive really is the drive of the neshama, of the soul. The soul has a craving inside of it to be attached ultimately to Hashem. That's really what the neshama, the soul, wants. It wants to be attached to the ultimate source of what life is, and that is where it comes from. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore we find people in this world, they are searching, they are looking, they're questioning, they're yearning, they're thirsty, they're hungry for something, meaning in their life. Well, why did you just have meaning on your own? Why wasn't a person created in a certain way that I could just live my life, I don't need anything else from the world around me, and I can have total meaning and satisfaction in my life? Because since that everybody has what's called a neshama, they have a soul, and that soul is a gigantic spiritual muscle, and it's huge in its world. It is craving and desiring something that is beyond what it is, because it's striving for higher forces and higher places in this world. If you believe in Hashem, that Hashem is the absolute truth, and you believe in the Torah, that the Torah is the absolute truth, then your neshama will gravitate towards living a life that is attached to Hashem. It will live a life that gravitates towards being attached to Torah and to mitzvahs, because you recognize this is the way in which you're going to satisfy the needs that you have to be attached to a higher power, to be attached to something greater outside of yourself. However, cautions of Weinberg, if a person can't get this basic level of Emunah, this basic level of faith inside of them, then he says we begin to look at the world around us and we see what exactly takes place. And that is all of the philosophies of this world, all of the isms of this world, all of the things in this world that people engage themselves in is all for one reason, is because they're looking and they're searching for something that is going to bring them the satisfaction they need inside of themselves. If I don't believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the center of the universe, and I don't believe that the Torah itself is the center of the universe, so then I will use my mind, I will use my emotions, I will use my intellect, whatever it is that I have, I will use that to create for myself a false impression of the things and the belief system that I'm going to be a part of, that I fool myself into thinking is going to bring me the happiness and the joy in my life that I'm looking for. And therefore he writes, once that we live in a world where there's relative ethics, that's his language, which means there's no absolutes. Everything is relative. Everything is ethics. That means, for example, and we spoke about it before in one of our classes, there's something in the world called euthanasia. Yeah, euthanasia, mercy, killing. How do you kill somebody mercifully? So if I decide in my mind that an old person who's suffering from a disease that's going to claim their life anyway within the next 3 to 6 months, so why should they suffer? So it's not a nice thing to suffer, because leaving this world with a smile on your face is better than leaving this world when you're racked in pain. So I decide that it's mercy to murder somebody. Who came up with that idea? That is the human psyche, that is the human intellect, searching for some kind of meaning to the meaning of life. Why does a person go to the movies? What do they do in the movies? They sit in a room, it's dark. Yeah, they go, imagine the scenario. They go with their husband, they haven't spent time with their husband in who knows how long. They say, you know what, let's go to a movie. There's this new love movie out there today. Let's go sit in the theater and let's go watch it. So they sit there. You sit down next to your husband for 2 hours. Well, with the trailers and with all the credits at the end, 2 hours and 15 minutes. You don't talk to each other once the entire time. Very bonding experience over here. You sit there and you watch the screen, and of course, he's watching the woman who's much prettier than you are, and you're watching the man that's much more handsome than your husband is, and they're funny, and they're cute, and they have a beautiful relationship, and everything is golden in the movies the way that it is. And then you walk out and you wonder to yourself, why is my marriage so lousy? Why is my marriage so boring? Why isn't he the knight in shining armor over there? And the reason is because you have looked somewhat outside of yourself for meaning in life, but you yourself are creating what you believe is where you are going to find meaning and satisfaction and happiness in life. And then when you're left on your own for who you really are, you will not be a person that is truly satisfied or happy with the life that they have. Says Rav Weinberg, if you live in a world where there's no absolute, which means Hashem is not absolute, you can take it or leave it. He's here, he's not here, you don't know. That means that the Torah is not absolute, which means that you could design for yourself any lifestyle, any belief system, any religion, any organization, whatever it is that you want to be able to live and to guide your life in that direction. What happens at that point? At that point, a person, if they would be honest with themselves, the reason that they are doing what they are doing is because they're running farther and farther and farther away from the ultimate existence of this world, which is, as we were saying, the absolute existence of Hashem. And therefore, the first step that a person needs to take in the world of Emunah is like the Rambam is saying over here. Now, remember again, in our Siddur, the Rambam is 2 lines. In the writings that he has in the back of the Gemara over there, where he describes the 13 principles of faith, he goes into much deeper understandings of that. And the much deeper understandings is that Hashem is the absolute being of this world, and he's the source of everything. Which means that I am obligated to come to an awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where, like we said, is to be margish, to feel and to know and to be totally aware that there's a Ribbono Shel Olam. Once that I have that, then I will attach myself, like the Ramchal writes in the Derech Hashem, that the more that a person is working on trying to understand the nature of God, the more that a person is spending their time and probing the depths of the wisdom of the Almighty, it's as if you are going to be grabbing on to Hashem, and you are going to bring yourself closer and closer to Hashem. But if a person decides in their tiny little mind that it's not worth my time and it's not worth my effort to try to figure out who is the master of this universe, so then instead of grabbing onto Hashem, you're going to just be moving farther and farther and farther away from Hashem, and you're going to have a very hard time seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your life. Our Emunah is based upon the work that we are going to do. Emunah is not a gift that is given to you where you go to sleep and you take a shot and you wake up in the morning, I believe. It doesn't work like that. The only way that you're going to believe is if you are willing to inculcate these ideas into your life. There is a famous story with Rav Yisrael Salanter, who was known as the father of the Musar movement. He was one of the greatest tzaddikim, the righteous men of his generation. He was once traveling through a town that he'd been in before, and he came to an inn. In those days, there weren't hotels the way that we have. When you were traveling, there were Jews that owned small inns. They were places where you could go and you could get a meal, and they would have bedrooms. You could go and you could sleep there. And he comes to this particular inn that he'd been at maybe, let's say, a year or two previously. And he knew that it was owned by a religious Jew and his beautiful family. And he walks into the inn and he's greeted by the innkeeper. And he notices right away that the innkeeper is not wearing a yarmulke. And he thought that was rather strange, because previously he was wearing a yarmulke. And he looks around and he sees, okay, I'm not sure what changed. He orders his meal and he asks the innkeeper, what's going on over here? You used to have a yarmulke, you used to be religious, what's going on over here? So he says, Rabbi, I'll tell you the truth. He says, I always believed in God. Of course, Torah is emes is true, Hashem he's the reality of this world. A guy walked into my inn about a year or so ago, and he sits down and he has a fleishige meal. And he eats his steak and his meat, and after the meal is over, he asked me for a glass of milk. And I said, Rabbi Yid, excuse me, you just ate meat. I can't serve you milk afterwards. The Torah says, no milk and meat. So the man says to me the following words, nothing is going to happen to me if I drink a glass of milk right now. I'm the customer. I'm asking you for a glass of milk. Bring me a glass of milk. And he threatened me, and I had no choice. So I brought the man a glass of milk. He says, Rebbe, you know what happened? He drank the milk, and nothing happened. He was fine. Hashem didn't strike him down. He didn't have a heart attack. He didn't get sick. He drank the milk and everything was fine. It made me realize that whatever it says in the Torah, probably not true. Because a person broke the law, nothing happened to him. And that's why I stopped mitzvahs. My family's a different family today. We're not living the same way that we were before. Rabbi Salanter was very bothered by this answer. And he said, well, tell me now, what's with your children? He said, you should know my daughter. She went off to one of the highest, highfalutin schools in Germany over there for ballet. She's one of the most amazing ballet dancers in the country right now. And she just received her certificate, her diploma of what an amazing dancer she is. Interesting, says Rabbi Salanter. And he goes off to his room. He comes back down sometime later, and he says, you mentioned that your daughter is a ballet dancer? He said, yes. He says, can you do me a favor? Can you please ask your daughter to come down here and do a ballet recital for me? He said, Rebbe, she's a girl. I know, but you said she's such an amazing dancer. I would like to see this young lady dance her ballet in front of me. So he goes to his daughter, and he says, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter is downstairs, and he wants you to come and do a dance for him. And she says, I am not going to dance for a rabbi downstairs. She said, please, the rabbi is asking, he's begging. He said, I told him already what an amazing dancer. He wants you to come downstairs and dance. So she pulls out her diploma and she says, here's my diploma. He doesn't believe I know how to dance? Show my diploma and he'll know that I'm a world-class dancer. So the father comes downstairs and he says to Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, Rebbe, I'm sorry, she refused to come downstairs and dance in front of you. But she gave me a diploma to prove to you that she knows how to dance. So Rav Yisrael Salanter looked at the man, he says, do your ears hear what your mouth is saying? He says, you see a man come into the room, he orders a steak, he eats a steak, and then he drinks a glass of milk afterwards, and nothing happens. So you tell me now that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't exist. The Torah is not true. He says, do you know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us to prove to us for all generations that He does exist? He gave us His Torah. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to Har Sinai, He danced for Klal Yisrael at Har Sinai. When they were going through the splitting of the sea, He danced for us through the splitting of the sea. When Yoshua needed to fight the enemies and come into Eretz Yisrael, He danced for us over there. There's a diploma for the Jewish people. And that diploma is called the Torah. And that is the proof for all generations that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows how to dance. And that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows how to take care of us. And He knows something called reward and punishment. You don't see it in this world? Don't worry. That person will see it in the world to come. And He told this Jew, how could you give up your faith? Because Hashem didn't strike a man down because he drank a glass of milk after eating a steak. That's not a proof for anything. The Torah itself is the greatest proof that we have. And this reader of Weinberg is saying, and I think that we'll end with this today, that if you can't get into the first stage of Emunah, which is absolute existence of Hashem, then you will not believe that the Torah is the ultimate truth either. And if you don't believe that the Torah is the ultimate truth, then you'll be very unmotivated to keep what it says inside of the Torah. However, once that a person develops their inner Emunah, their inner faith, and they take it from their mind and they bring it down into their hearts, then the person will begin to understand, just like I know that someone's in that room over there, I just can't see them, but I know that they are there. Just like the child knows when his parents in the other room, and he better be careful because mom can open up the door any minute that she wants. So there's a total awareness of the existence of their parents in the house in the other room, even though they can't see them. When I get to the level of Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that I realize that everything is Hashem, and the world bespeaks and it cries out the glory and the existence of Hashem, and I'm building up my Emunah Pshuta, my simple Emunah, to be margish, to feel that Hashem is there, then I can begin to enter into a world of Torah, I can enter into a world of mitzvahs, I can enter into a world of true, unadulterated Emunah, where I know that Hashem is Nimtza, that Hashem exists, and He's not chas v'chalila, God forbid, nedar, that He is absent from this world. The fact that there is a creation, and the world is perfect the way that it is, that's the greatest proof in just the intellectual mind that a person can have, that there exists in our lives, in this world, for all centuries, the creator of the world, who we know as the Rebbeinu Shalom, the master of the world, who runs and He guides the world, and He runs and He guides our lives. And as we shall see next week, Be'ez Hashem, He created the world, He put the world into motion, and He has never let go of it for a single second since the beginning of time.